Hello, and welcome back to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and today we're going to talk about red flags. If you've been burned by relationships before, maybe you've even been through a divorce, you might be a little afraid to get into a more serious, committed relationship because you might be thinking, am I seeing all the red flags? Well, our guest today is Maria Allyn, and she's a relationship coach. She has a passion for working with committed couples who want to proactively lay a strong foundation for a solid, enduring relationship based on their own unique values and beliefs. She believes that by doing the work before the vows, you can put in a structure in place that helps you to not just survive, but flourish. So today she's going to talk to us about these 3 red flags. And Maria is going to give us some really good information about, are we ready for that next step? And I think that this is so important because I have so many clients that are like, I've been married before. What if this isn't the right thing? Am I seeing all of the red flags? So today we're going to talk about red flags. So welcome, Maria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Christina, for having me here. And I hear about red flags all the time, too. It's a huge topic that people are interested in.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about you and why these red flags are so important in what you do.
I sure will. I'm a relationship coach and family mediator. And what I do primarily is work with couples who are committed, but haven't quite yet taken that next step in terms of a ceremony. And I think that the most important thing that a couple can do before they tie the knot is to really lay a firm foundation. And that is discussing topics that might threaten to break them up down the road. And just having an understanding and having that win-win compromise before you make that heavy commitment. And, relationships are tough. And you need all the help you can get. You need all the tools you can get when things get rocky.
Absolutely, because it can get really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my podcast squad here knows that I've been divorced before.
Yeah.
I spent 6 years being very, very angry about it. So when we think about divorce, it's not just like, hey, okay, we're done now, like a relationship where you can just walk away. It gets a little stickier than that. So I know that a lot of my clients have also been divorced and they're wondering, is it even worth it? Or, what is it that I'm supposed to be looking for? How could this go wrong? And so,
Absolutely. No, I
and so I,
absolutely get it. I
yeah.
am also divorced and remember spending a lot of years very angry with a lot of guilt because I had young children and,
Mhm.
wishing I had done it better or maybe I should have stuck it out and, just going back and forth until I found my footing. So it really is a time where if you can take a breath and just get still, there's some good lessons in there through a divorce. And for me, it really was when I started to bloom.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. Once I got past the anger
Mm,
is when I really started to bloom. And yet I can understand like a bunch of my clients that are in relationships and ready, they think they're, ready to move
yeah.
on and get
Yeah.
married again, that they start getting this fear,
Hmm.
right? Because the first time there was things we didn't see or things we didn't
Yeah.
explore. And so, what are these 3 red flags that we should be looking at when we're getting into another relationship?
All right. Well, let's start with the first one. And that is if your partner doesn't have the ability to bite their tongue. And we've always heard that if you can't say something nice, don't say anything. I've heard that growing up time and time again. But I think we apply it more to strangers and coworkers than we do to our partners. And
Hmm.
over time, partners who can't bite their tongue, they leave their partners feeling beaten up, by their unkind, unnecessary words. And it becomes very easy for that person to get into the habit of venting, on their partner, not with their partner. And you end up becoming their emotional kick dog. And it's a gradual process that you fall into. And gosh, it happens at such a slow pace that it becomes your new normal. So, it's so easy to say to ourselves, he or she's having a bad day. I know they love me. I didn't mean it. And not hold that person accountable for the way they're making you feel and for the disrespect they're having for your relationship. So,
Mm.
it involves a lot of walking on eggshells, which doesn't make for good intimacy. And if someone can't pick their battles, if someone can't walk away from always having to have the last word, if someone isn't emotionally mature enough so that they can edit kindness into their conversation, that's a huge red flag to me.
Yes, I hear that one. And I want to own that one
Mm,
because I got to tell you, I've done this. I've been overly
mm-hmm,
critical. I'm remarried now. Luckily, I have a man who's done a lot of work and can hold his own space and his own
mm-hmm.
boundaries. And I've learned that there are things that I could mention, and then there's
Ah,
things that's like, what do I hope to get out of this?
absolutely,
Really? That's what it
absolutely.
comes down to for me. So even when I'm ranting and raving, and it's
Mm-hmm,
usually not at my husband or about him,
mm-hmm.
but even when I'm ranting and raving about anything, my husband's beautiful question that has changed my life
Aw,
is, what is it that you actually want out of this?
I love that. Yeah.
So that I can get really clear, like, hold on, am I complaining about this person doing the dishes, or
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I'm complaining about? What is it that I actually want out of that? Because
Absolutely.
sometimes we can just get judgmental and go off on a thing, and it's like, I know there's nothing I want out of this, or I want this specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not really getting to that. I'm not actually asking for what I want.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I am just making up stories and
Mm-hmm.
sharing them, and they can be really hard for, my husband grew some thick
Yeah.
skin. Luckily, I've gotten a lot better.
Oh, sure. It's a work
I've
in
gotten a lot better
progress.
at doing this and choosing my battles, right? Like you
Absolutely.
said. And so, yeah, I just want to claim that I have
Mm-hmm.
indeed done that myself. So we can change from that. But I think what Maria is saying here is that there's some people that aren't ever even going to be willing to see that they could do it
And I
differently.
do think
And
that's
so,
part of the human condition, Christina, but when you get to be an adult, you have to take responsibility for how you are affecting other people, And if you
yeah,
can't get to a point where you can't curb or work on or do whatever you need to do so that you're not a good partner, that's huge.
yes, yes. And it seems like a little thing, but it's like
Mm,
one of those little annoyances
mm-hmm.
that happen all day long. And exactly what you were saying
Yeah.
was happening to my husband in the beginning of our
Mm-hmm.
relationship as he started questioning himself
Sure.
and like, am I even good enough? Does she even really want me
Aw.
around? Why is she picking on all this stuff, right? And I think for on my side, it was like I just want everything to be
Yeah.
perfect, right? And I had my idea of what perfect was. So I don't think it's always a bad
Oh,
intention.
no.
It's just that they're not aware of it.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think you're
it's something
absolutely
that I
right.
would highly suggest, seeing a coach like Maria
Mm-hmm.
to work that out so that you can have better communication because it makes all the difference in a
And
relationship
it
for
has
sure.
such a spiraling effect. I mean, it ripples into every area of your life. And
Hmm.
being able to get a hold of that is such a gift. It's a gift to your partner and it's a gift to yourself. I mean, you don't want to be that person.
No, I
Yeah.
did not want to be that
Yeah.
person. That was like left over from my angry years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had angry years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always think of that quote that says something like, before marriage keep your eyes half closed, and after, or no, before marriage keep your eyes wide
Right.
open, and after marriage keep them half
Half
shut.
shut. Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's so funny how those sayings that have stood the test of time really have some
Right.
some validity to them. They're true.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because after you get married, I mean,
Hmm.
well, choose those battles which are most important.
And I tell my clients that there are going to be times, and marriage will also include extremes. There'll be times where you think to yourself, God, am I lucky to have this person? God, what a
Hmm.
gift this person. And then there are days where you want to just smother them with the pillow. I mean, but it's being able to regulate that and go beyond it.
Yes, and starting to ask myself the question was because I can feel it like when I'm having
Yeah.
judgments. My husband moved my robe. I had it somewhere for 5 seconds and he moved it with his, like, he's really he puts things away
Hmm.
before I am done using them. And I started getting really angry in my head about it. And I was like, why am I
Yeah.
getting so angry
Yeah.
about this? And it was actually other stuff that was going on
Hmm.
for me that day. It really had nothing to do with him. It was just me being in my own space. And so, when we start seeing that switch
Yes.
from, oh, I love him so much to, I'm going to throttle him,
Mm.
then this is a time for us to ask, what's going on for me?
And that's such a good tool. And I use it myself. I mean, there are times where I'll feel anxious. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? And I just drill it down. What is it? Why are you anxious? What's going
Hmm.
on? And just go down and down. And usually it will end up being something, very basic, like I talked to my daughter this morning and she said this, and it made me feel a little nervous. But
Hmm.
you drill down and you find the cause, and you can work it out. Work
Yeah,
it
in
out.
ourselves, though. That's the important part.
Hmm.
Sometimes we want to find the cause in the other person, and it's like,
Hmm.
no, I'm the one feeling this way. I'm the one with the problem right here.
That's it. That's it.
Beautiful. So we heard about the first red
Yeah,
flag.
got the first one. And the second one is your partner's either in or out. And, I'm all
Mm,
about sticking together, but I have seen so many shows and newspaper things about people who've been engaged for 15 years. This is my fiance, but, we've been together for 15 years. And it really does poke fun at the whole institution of marriage. I mean, are you in or are you out? You have couples
mm,
who are breaking up every weekend, and, the cops are coming to your house every weekend and helping you move your stuff out. Your neighbors are shunning you. Are they in or are they out? So
mm.
if you're not 110% sure that this person is committed to you, it's a red flag. It's a red
Yes.
flag. And, life is nothing but choices. And without moving forward, or not moving forward, or having that conversation, you become stuck and you end up being engaged for 15 years. So,
Mm. And that's not even the worst part
oh,
of it, though, right? Usually those relationships it's not the length that you haven't been married
mm-hmm.
for. It's just a symptom,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah. And so I mean, it's a really great symptom to look for
Mm-hmm.
because I think, I think I lost my thought for a second there. I think that there's other things that are happening in that
Sure.
relationship, right? These are also a lot of these relationships are the ones where we're checking each other's
Oh,
phone when the other person's
crazy.
not around, and
That's
like
true.
I think about all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me love my husband more because not once in our relationship have either of us have wanted to do that, because that to me is, if I'm at the point
Oh,
where I'm checking your stuff,
right.
I don't trust
At
you. And
all.
that's like
At
the
all.
foundation.
And I tell you what, and that becomes an obsession. I talk to women who, he had two blinks instead of the usual one, and that means this and that. It gets to be a crazy way of living. So if
Hmm.
you feel that there's not a commitment between the two of you, and different relationships have different desires and needs. Maybe you classify your commitment as, oh, we're not going to get married, but we're committed to each other, whatever it may
Hmm.
be, whatever your understanding of the commitment is. If it's not there, huge red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. I had we just went to a wedding last month for this couple that had been together for 20 some
Mm.
years. They had kids.
Oh yeah.
Their kids are graduating
Mm-hmm.
and they've just decided now to get married, but they were committed the entire
Mm-hmm.
time. It wasn't like they were in and out. They knew that they were committed. They just didn't know that they ever wanted to be in, a formal
Right.
marriage. And now they finally decided that, yeah, let's go have a party. I think it was more about the
I
party that
love
they
that.
had the marriage.
Why not?
But yeah, but they had been committed the entire time. You could have asked either of them and they were completely in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit different. So we do want to just make that for those people who don't want to get married in a formal ceremony. There is still are you really in? Or,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that we're not getting married because we're not committed. We're not getting married just because we just don't like the institution of marriage. That's a different
That's a
thing.
different thing. Are you committed to the relationship choice that you've made as a couple? Whatever that
Right.
might be for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of you is not looking for greener grass
Right.
still.
Oh, so
Right.
true. Yeah, so true.
Yeah. And that feeling of having to check up on people, oh my goodness. I had that in my first marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
I just remember spending days looking on dating sites where he was and this and that. And I can't imagine that there's a worse feeling in the
It
world than
turns you
like
into a crazy person. It
yes,
really
that's
does.
exactly how
And
I
what
felt.
happens is your crazy behavior overshadows what your partner is doing. And so
Yeah.
you
Because
end
now
up
I'm the
being the
crazy one.
crazy fool and he's only cheating. He's only
Yeah.
cheating, but look at you. You know.
But then it like almost even excuses it
Yeah,
because, well, you're a crazy woman and no wonder he's cheating on you.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If that urge comes up, I think your gut already knows, you
Yes.
know?
Yes, I think that we already know. I mean, unless there's been something in my past where I just assume everybody's
Mm-hmm.
cheating on me. If
Mm-hmm.
it's that type of thing, that might just be a me
Yeah.
thing. But I think if you've had a good relationship, then out of nowhere, you decide you need to start checking up on these
Mm,
things. Again, we have to go back to ourselves and go, what's going on for me
exactly.
right now?
Exactly. Yeah, no, no, life's too short, and you deserve better. You deserve
Yes, and there
better.
is better out there, just in case there's people listening and
Hmm.
going, but I don't know. Because I think when we get to midlife, we start thinking like our choices are limited.
I think we do. I mean, I'm 61, and my sisters are in their late 50s, and we really talk all the time about the topic of midlife. Trying to cheer each other on, or being soft shoulders to land. But I think there's a feeling of desperation. In a lot of
Mm,
midlife women, where God, I'm getting older. The boobs are sagging, and nobody's going to want me. But I have Jerry next door, who winked at me. Why not? I mean,
hmm.
and you have to get yourself out of that mindset of not being valuable. Not being
Yes.
valuable.
Yes. After my divorce, my friends thought I was a man hater, which I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was men critical, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I went home one night and wrote a drunken list of
Mm-hmm.
the next man that I date is going to be like this, or I don't want them. I'm going to do better on my own. I'm
Yep.
going to figure it out on my own because I know I absolutely do not want these things. And it wasn't about what the person would look like or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was all like really personal, deep growth kind of
Sure.
things. And, 6 months after we moved in together, I found this list
Ah,
for my husband and he checked every single
isn't
one of
that
them. We weren't even
something?
married yet.
A lot of
Yeah,
times
and I was like, exactly.
I
I
love it.
wasn't about to settle.
Yeah, a lot of times if you can just put it out there in the world, put
Hmm.
it out there, voice it, and acknowledge that, and let it go, and
Hmm.
it'll come to you. It'll come to
Right.
you.
Right. Without forcing it, as long as
Oh
we're not
yeah,
trying
without
to
forcing,
force it.
without forcing.
Yeah.
And I also think with talking about midlife and all that, one thing that was really healing for me and really propelled me to the next level was living by myself. I had
Hmm.
never lived by myself. I'd gone from mom and dad to college dorms, and then immediately after I graduated, I married my husband. I had never had my own space. And so I
Mm.
got my own apartment, and it's like, golly, it's like my little piece of heaven, you know. Um,
Right.
and it's
Were you scared at
I
first?
was I was scared
Hmm.
at first, yeah, I was. But as time went on, I started realizing that I like being by myself. Um, I like having things the way I want them. I like being surrounded by things that I love. And that really put me into another level. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that, you get into your late 30s and you have never been in an environment that you could claim as your own, you know?
Yeah. And really start to, what is it like to be with
Ah,
myself? What is it that I like, rather than, I know that many of us are raised people pleasers.
mm-hmm,
And so, we can meld, right, with what the other person always wants and what the other person enjoys.
mm-hmm.
And so some of us never even asked ourselves, well, what is it that I actually want? How is it that I want to live my life, rather than how can I fit in somebody else's
Oh, that's
box?
so true. And I know one thing that I did was I tried to focus on what am I distracting myself with? I mean,
Mhm,
what am I doing that's taking the place of doing something that's going to be of value to me? Why am
mhm,
I binging Cops, for 5 hours? Why am I watching Cheaters? Why am I, looking up Instagram? And I mean, what is behind this? And it really is a way
mhm.
of distracting myself with just sitting still and feeling. And that
Right.
revelation was something that propelled me forward too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we also can excuse our bad habits
Mm,
when there's somebody else around, especially if they have some of the same
I
bad
think you're
habits,
right.
right?
I think you're right, but it's only you. It's only you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I learned so much about myself after my first divorce.
Hmm.
It was pretty amazing. That's when my huge growth
Yeah,
curve came, when
yeah.
I got tired of being angry about it.
Hmm.
And it was amazing. And I don't think I would have had that same type of shift if I had somebody else immediately in my
Oh,
life
I
right
agree.
after that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. And it would have just been, just him looking different, but still in your mind being that husband, that you weren't quite ready to release. It sounds like, and
Hmm.
it would just be a self fulfilling prophecy. See, I told you. Yeah, here they are. Here's another one.
Yep. So I would have dated the same
Yeah.
type of person and wanted different results,
Mm-hmm. Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
We never do that, do we?
Never, never.
Until we learn our lesson, right? And that's what I had to really get clear on. What is it that I actually want?
Mm-hmm.
Which was a huge shift for me, rather than like you said, oh, well, the neighbor's right there and he winked at
Right.
me, right? And I actually have a friend who that's how her relationship started, like, and boom, there, and now she's questioning it. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because you didn't really ask yourself, is this what you want? Or it was more like, this is what's available.
Exactly, exactly. And I don't think, all women who, uh, quickly move on to whoever gives them the eye are this way. But I think
Sure.
there's a lot of desperation, the energy that you're sending out. And I think that desperation pulls certain types of men to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think people can
Sure
sense
will.
it. They can sense it. And there are different personalities who, they're like vultures. And once they sense it, they're on you. You know,
Hmm.
this
Yeah,
person,
because you
yeah,
usually don't have any boundaries either at that
yeah.
point, right?
Oh
I
my
mean, if
God.
you're just
Mm-hmm.
in that desperation, like, I'm 55 years old, who's
Mm-hmm.
ever going to love me
Mm-hmm.
again? You know what I mean? Then we just start grabbing at whatever, instead of what we truly
Oh,
deserve
that's so
and what
true.
we
That's so true.
truly need.
One thing that I do on my lunch hour, and I love her, is Judge Judy. Judge Judy, I
Oh,
love her. And so I
yeah.
usually eat lunch watching her, and so many women will be on there suing former boyfriends who met, this man. 3 weeks later, they're moved in together. 2 weeks after that, she's loaned him $1,200. And it's like, oh my gosh,
Yes,
over and over.
boundaries, please. Please, some boundaries.
Yeah. And it's
Because a good man will hear your boundaries and respect them, I think. I mean,
I
at
think
least
so.
good man meaning someone I would marry.
And a good man knows that that you're a jerk if you ask somebody for $1,000 after 3 weeks.
The Inviting Shift podcast is brought to you by Christina Smith Coaching. If you've ever wondered what you might be doing right in relationships, I have a super quick quiz for you that'll tune you into the archetype that you lean into most while you are in relationship. I hope that you take it. It's only a few minutes. It's going to help you lean into your strengths and also look at some areas where you might want to be able to shift your energy. The quiz is at a link around here somewhere, or you can go to christina-smith.com/relationship quiz.
And it's funny you mentioned boundaries, and that's the third red flag that I have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, good transition. Someone who does not respect your boundaries, who does not respect your deal breakers. So there are a lot of relationships where boundaries have been drawn in the sand. If you ever cheated on me, or if you ever became an addict, or whatever your boundary is, whatever it is that you can't live with, and you just don't have the threshold for.
We call them non-negotiables
That's the best
in my
word,
coaching, right? The
non-negotiable.
non-negotiables.
Yep.
This is not negotiable.
And if that keeps on being crossed in the slightest way, so let's say that your non-negotiable is cheating, and you have a partner who has a good girlfriend, a work friend, a girl who happens to be a friend that he has lunch with every day, and they once a week, maybe Friday evening after work, they go out for a drink. It's just their routine. Now, that isn't necessarily cheating, but it sure is on the line of becoming something that is not conducive to a good relationship with your partner. So knowing the boundaries, knowing the deal breakers, and not respecting them, I think that's a deal breaker.
Yeah, I do too. If I tell you something is important to me, and that's basically the story I tell myself about that, is that I'm not as important as what you want to do. And that my safety or my feeling safe in this relationship isn't as important to you as having extra friends. Now, if he invited me along and, the three of us were hanging out, that would be a different thing. I'm right there. I have my eye on it. I know that nothing's going crazy, so that might be a different situation. But yes, I believe that boundaries aren't usually just walked right over. They're kind of creeped over.
They absolutely
right?
are.
Like, is she really serious? Is she really going to enforce this boundary? And I think it's our responsibility to either enforce those boundaries, and if they can't be respected, those boundaries were created because we thought they were important.
Absolutely.
Sure, we can relook and see, is that still important? Is it really a safety issue or a discomfort issue? But at some point, if they're not respecting what I think is important, then, I mean, no blame or shame on them. It's just not a relationship that's going to work for me.
It's not for me. It's just not for me.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too, and we go back to that desperation again, and that fear of being by ourselves, fear of being alone, is that we set our boundaries and then we make excuses. Look, if you ever cheat, I'm out of here. He cheats, and he tells you, "Well, honey, I love you. It's sex. It's not what I have with you. It's only sex." And you hear that and you say, "Oh, okay, well, you know what? I guess it is only sex, but he really makes love to me, but it's sex with the," we do that to ourselves where we cross our own boundaries,
Absolutely. Or we do, it's just that one time. It's just that. Or what can also happen is when we bring up our boundaries, the other person gets so insane about them
Crazy. Yeah.
that their energy gets so big that
Hmm.
we can feel like, oh, I need to cower
Oh,
down.
that's
He
such a
must
good
be right
point.
because he's
Yeah.
loud and angry.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's not right just because he's louder.
Right. No, no. And that's happened to me before too, where saying something, and it's happened to all of us, I'm sure, saying something legitimate. And because that person either felt, I don't know, cornered or um, did not have anything in response because they were wrong or whatever, it's the voice level and, the body stance and everything. And it will, if you don't know what they're doing and um, if you don't take care of yourself, it'll make you back down. And that's the point of it. That's the point
Yep.
of it, taking the
Or
control
you're
back.
crazy. You're crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know how many times I backed down to
Yeah.
my first marriage because he's like, you're just
Yeah.
crazy. You're just crazy. And then I started thinking in my head, well, maybe I am
Oh, it's
crazy.
easy. It's easy.
Maybe I am overwhelmed, right? Instead of defending my
Mm-hmm.
boundary of like, this can't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I was the crazy one because I was going and finding all this evidence.
Right.
And what was I finding all this evidence for? And oh, that's so insane. I mean, I could bring him picture evidence and he would say I was crazy.
And you'd look
And
at it and say,
so,
well, maybe it was, God, is this Photoshop? The head looks a little odd on the neck. Yeah.
right.
It's
I
sort of
mean, like
surprising.
maybe I am
Yeah,
crazy.
no,
Why
I've
am
been
I
there.
looking for all of
I
this?
have been there. And you know what? When you tell your partner where your boundary is, they shouldn't be caught off guard because you already told them. You told them.
Right.
And so any sort of, oh gosh, I didn't know, or that's off the table. We had this conversation, and you knew, you know.
I love that point
Yeah.
because I think that there is something to be
Hmm.
said about speaking boundaries. Now, we might be in a new relationship and think, well, nobody, cheating isn't ever okay.
Hmm.
Speak those
Yep.
boundaries, lady, because if you do not speak them,
Hmm.
it is as though, we can't assume that the
Oh,
other
that's so
person knows.
true. That's so true.
And so, like, we might, like, I don't know, there's some women who are like, I had a client who she told me, she's like, I spent the whole afternoon cleaning the baseboards in our bedroom. And then I told my husband, he was just like, thanks.
Hmm.
It wasn't even a big deal. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
does he know what a baseboard
Well,
is or that they need to be
it's so
cleaned?
funny
Like,
you said
what's
that.
important to
The
you is
first,
not important to them.
the first thing that went through my mind is, why is she cleaning the baseboards?
Yeah, exactly what I thought too. I was like, I don't
It's like,
clean
honey, what
those.
are you doing? I think I know where they are. Yeah, I have a good idea, but that's just not on my list.
Right. So she wanted to create like a boundary around him being more grateful. I'm like, for something that you don't even want to do.
Right. Yeah. And let's
You're gonna
drill
say
that
no.
down. Drill it down. What is this really about? It's not about that. What is it?
Right.
What is it? Because that's just that's kind of bullyish too. Where you put
Yeah.
something where somebody has to behave in a certain way or else there's consequences.
You're setting
You're
them up
setting
for
them up.
failure. Like, did you tell him how you wanted him to react? Because he probably didn't know it was like this big flag day kind of
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? Like he didn't understand that. And I don't think that that's him trying to hurt you.
Right.
I think it wasn't important to him. It's as if my husband would come to me and tell me about some sci-fi thing. And I'd be like,
Mm.
that's
Great,
great.
hon. Could you pass the remote? Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he's a guy. I mean, he doesn't he doesn't care. It's not on his
Right.
radar, baseboards.
Right, right. So I think when we say boundaries, we're talking about real
Mhm. We're
non-negotiables, which is
talking
something
about
that
non-negotiables.
yes, these are not like, this is how I want you to show up or act in life
Hmm.
all the time. They're their own person. But these are the things that I absolutely cannot live with in a partner. It's not going to be a fit for us.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. And like you said, it could be that you've been in jail or
Yeah.
that you are a drug
Yep.
addict or cheating or whatever it is. But it has to be something like, for me, honesty is
Yeah.
like,
I'm big on
if
honesty. Yeah.
I catch you in a lie, this is gonna, like, that's a huge piece of our
I
relationship
just
gone
can't I
because
can't get the bell can't be unrung with a lie for me.
yep,
Yeah.
Exactly. Me too. Me too. And so that's where I really truly that's my
Yeah. That's a big
non-negotiable.
one for me.
I'd rather hear the thing that hurts me than not hear it at all.
Oh no, and you owe me that. And then I let me decide
Yes.
how I react to it. That's my
Exactly.
choice, not yours to make for me.
Right.
Cheating is usually the one that I hear about most often, but it's whatever you decide. Whether it could be porn, it could be,
Hmm.
we don't have sex. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
so many
If
things.
you're big into religion, it
Oh,
might be that I
yeah.
want you to be part of my
Yep.
religion. And if you're not going to church every Sunday with
Right.
me, then that might not work out if religion is a huge piece of
It's
my life.
absolutely, and that's the beauty of relationships. I mean, they're uniquely, you can uniquely tailor it to what you need and what your desires are. You get to choose, you know?
As long as we're not desperate,
Yeah.
right? As long as we're not telling ourselves that this is the only man that's ever going to be
Hmm.
interested, or woman, whatever it is, but this is the only person that's ever going to be interested in me. Like that's just not
It's
true.
not true.
I always believe that the universe is just testing you with that first couple of them, right? And going, are you going to go for the same
Yeah.
stuff that you
Yeah.
had
Let's
last
see.
time, or are
Yeah.
you going to try something new and different that might actually be
That
helpful?
universe is a tricky, yeah, teacher.
Yeah. Well, challenges are
Yeah.
how we prove that we've learned something, right?
No, that's true.
me
That's
me
true.
not going back to someone I have to question about their loyalty and their faithfulness, like that's not going to work for me.
Hmm.
So if I want something different, I might have to show up a little bit
Yeah.
different and
Yeah.
really do the work of figuring out
I
what am I worth? I
Oh,
mean, that's what I had
that's
to
so
come down
real.
to.
That's so real. I think a lot of times too, when you reach midlife, and you've been in a relationship that's failed, you've probably heard no one will want you. You're
Mhm.
too old, da 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 da. I mean, these are things cruel things that are said when relationships are ending, and they're said because they're effective. You know, yeah.
Sure. I mean, in midlife, we already feel like we're
Are
going
you kidding?
invisible, right? Because
Yeah.
we're not as pretty as we used to
Oh
be. And
yeah.
for women, that's like their number one quality
Yeah.
that we raise them with. And so, yeah, we're already feeling invisible. And then we're wondering, with all these hot young chicks around, is there going to be any men? There's plenty of men out
There are men
there
out
and
there, and
women.
and a big thing too is intimacy. I mean, my God, yeah, I look good in this
Yeah.
dress and my Spanx, but what happens? What happens when it's time to take them off? It's
Yeah.
it's
My body doesn't look like it used to,
no,
that's
no,
for sure.
no. But it's a lot. It takes a lot
Yeah.
of just getting on up there and just go ahead, just doing it, just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, trying it
Yep.
out and not being afraid to say, nope, that's not going to work for
Hmm.
me. I really want women to be a little bit more choosy. I don't know how I found my husband. I would try to multiply a farm for y'all and
Gosh, I wish you
get them
would.
farmed out.
Yeah, I wish you would.
He's pretty awesome. But he does a lot of like, here's my non-negotiable moving forward. Should anything happen to my husband is I will never date another man who won't do his own work and
That's
wants to blame
huge.
stuff on me. I do not own your stuff. I am not
So good.
responsible for how you show up. So
I might
if
steal
you
that
won't do
from
your
you.
work.
That's a good one because what happens if they're not doing your work, and I spend a lot of time working on myself because
Mhm.
it takes me places I wouldn't go without it. And if there was a man that I'm with who's not doing the same, I'd outgrow him. I mean,
Yes, exactly what would
it's not going to
happen.
work. It's not going to
Mm-mm,
work.
no, because then it feels like you're dragging them behind you
Absolutely, you
all
got
the
this
time.
this
Like,
ball and chain.
get on the same page, man.
Yeah,
Get on the same page. And so it feels really, really heavy
that's
if
true.
that's what's going
And you
on.
lose
So,
respect for somebody who's not
yes.
moving forward.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That the greatest thing about our relationship is that I trust my husband's never trying to hurt
Yeah.
me and
Oh.
that we own our own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I own my feelings. I don't blame them on him. He
Hmm.
owns his own feelings and his thoughts, and we can actually get
Oh,
somewhere with that. Rather than like my first marriage, it very much felt like we were on the opposite sides of a boxing
gosh. So
ring.
there is always a
And
winner and a loser. Yeah.
Exactly. Rather than what is it that we
Right.
both want? Like what I try to teach my clients is that in a relationship, we're on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
Like we want this relationship to
Mm-hmm.
work, whether that's family, friends, whatever. We want this relationship to work. The thing that's on the other side is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
it's
if we can just start picking out what is it that I need? What is it that you need? And how
absolutely,
can we
it
get there?
turns into a win-win for both of us.
Right. Instead of I got the last word or I'm right. That right fighting is
Mm-hmm.
whew, big
Mm-hmm.
problem.
It is a big problem.
All right. So let's just review those 3 red flags real
Yeah.
quick. Just list them out for me real quick, Coach Maria.
Okay. The first one we have is bite your tongue. And not
Yes.
only is it necessary to, be kind and be nice to strangers and coworkers, it's also nice to treat your partner in a way that doesn't leave them feeling beat up by unkind, unnecessary words. And, it doesn't
Yeah.
always
We're
have to
supposed
be
to be each
words.
other's support.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could be eye rolls, it could be, comments and that whole thing.
Or saying mean things in front of other
Oh my
people, pretending
gosh.
that you're joking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you're, yeah.
I may have done that once or
Yeah,
twice. I
I
don't
think I
do it
might be guilty of that
anymore.
myself. Yeah, once or
Yeah.
twice. Um, the second one is, you have to be in or out. If you're in with me, be all the way in, and if you're not, then it's not a good fit. I
Right.
don't want to be engaged for 15 years. You know, you're in and out, depending on what we've decided this relationship will entail. And the
Hmm.
third is knowing, sharing your deal breakers, and having a partner who doesn't adhere to the boundaries that you've drawn. Huge red
Yeah.
flag.
Yep. It's only gonna get worse,
Oh,
people.
are
I can
you
tell you.
kidding? And they're on their best behavior, when you're,
Right. They're not even married
oh
yet.
my, so
So if
imagine.
if they're crossing all kinds of boundaries because they think, and I think there is an immature male
Hmm.
that can happen,
Hmm.
masculine for women or men, that goes into how much can I get away
Oh,
with?
I think so too.
I don't want a partner that wants to know how much they can get away with.
Yeah, and once they start getting away with things, they lose respect for you, and it gets, like you said, worse.
Yep.
The bar is raised for what's next. What else would they put up with? You know.
Well, it's almost like that adolescent that's like, oh, well, I crossed the boundary there
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get caught, and I pushed it there.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me just cross right over it. Of course. And again, I don't think that that's negatively, I don't think that's something that people
No, I don't
intentionally
think
do.
so.
I think it's just a human
Mm-hmm.
behavior. And so that's why animals have that behavior of like, I'm eating right now. Don't come near me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got that behavior too.
That's their boundary.
I'm eating now. Please step back.
Yep. Awesome. And then, yeah, and so beautiful. So now we have
Um,
these huge red flags to start looking at and going, does my relationship pass the test of this,
mm-hmm.
right? And so, of course, there's more red flags in the world, but I love these because these are 3 major red flags that I think they also go along with personal growth
Mm-hmm.
work, like
Mm-hmm.
even making boundaries and holding boundaries. That's our personal growth work. So hopefully, if some of these are feeling like red flags that you're having in your life, that you're going to start looking at them and maybe you'll reach out to me or
Oh, I
Maria
hope so.
to figure out what is going on. Is this really a red flag? How can I reinforce my boundaries better? And we'll even come and tell you exactly what you
Yeah,
deserve.
and I tell you, after raising kids, I've got 3 adult girls. After raising kids, after doing this and that, this is my time. This third chapter of this is for me. And so I don't want to waste it on any nonsense, you know?
No
Yeah.
way. Better to be on your
Mm-hmm.
own and hanging out with friends
Mm-hmm.
than to be with a partner that you don't want to come
Oh
home
God,
to.
absolutely.
Been there too, huh?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Golly, so much in common.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder if that's why we're both coaches.
Is that something? Yeah, what is it? Physician, heal thyself. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I will say it's been a
exactly.
good career for me, in terms of selfishly helping me.
Yes, yes, exactly. So tell us a little bit about what you might have for our pod squad
Ah,
here. How
well,
can they get in touch with you? What can they
yeah. Well, I have a goodie that's going to go along with these three red flags. I have an
Beautiful.
ebook on how to know if you're in a committed relationship. And I think,
Beautiful.
yeah, it's perfect to just really zero in on, the concept of commitment and what it means to you. So that I think you'll really enjoy. And you can find
Yeah.
me at www.maria-allyn. And my Allyn is a funny one. It's ALLYN.com.
I'll make
And
sure I put
from,
it below.
yep, yep. And from there, you can get my social media addresses and everything. But we have a lot of fun. We have a membership group. We have a lot of fun where we're growing together, we're learning, but we do it in a fun way. So
Hmm.
come and join us. I'd love it.
That's beautiful. I love that that giveaway
Oh,
too,
good. Yeah, I
because
thought it would be
it's like
good.
it's so hard to like, am I in a committed
Hmm.
relationship? Like, so I love that you give them a little blueprint to really kind of walk
Oh,
through
I'm
some of
so
that.
glad. Yeah, it did seem good. Seemed like a good fit.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so
Aw,
much, Maria, for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on
I'd
again in the
love
future. But
that.
this was delicious
Aw.
conversation. Hopefully, it put some of our audience, rest. That okay, maybe I'm not missing anything. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm actually in a great relationship. It does happen,
Mm-hmm.
even after you've had a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for being here
I
today.
had a wonderful time. Thank you so much, Christina, for inviting me.
Hey, one more thing. When we are all more confident and full of self love, we can act more intentionally and mindfully. What would a world like that look like? I want to know. One way that you can help me with this vision is to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps more than you know, and it's just a few clicks to help me create a more beautiful world. And as always, remember to be gentle with your humanness.